Welcome to another edition of Monday Morning Manager. We are here to talk about the 2-0 loss to Tottenham and what has been a frustrating, 24 hours since. Originally, we were going to record this a few hours after full time. We both thought it might be a better idea to take a little bit of time, recompose ourselves, and record after the fact. So, first off, just want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the match?
Yeah, I thought we started off really well. I think that the tactical setup was really good and really strong to put us into the positions we like, where we're controlling a lot of the territory, controlling a lot of the chance creation and stuff like that. I think that a lot of our issues came after we lost our head, lose it after we allowed the first goal to go in, and then obviously the Trafford mistake, I think, was a bit of the nail in the coffin with that in terms of closing out the half, going in with a very negative mindset into the second half, and just really struggling to kind of get into the second half in the beginning. And then once you get into those type of, you're down 2-0 against a team like Spurs with a manager like Thomas Frank who really knows how to play a compact setup and keep it tight and not really allow a ton of chances in that type of scenario. I think that the result was pretty set in stone at that point. But yeah, I don't think it was as bad as the people around the club right now would want you to believe it was, or the meltdown yesterday would indicate it was. But yeah, I think it was a typical Spurs versus Manchester City match, I think.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think, and for those who don't know, I live out on the West Coast, so these like noon kickoffs, these like 12:30 kickoffs in the UK are 4:30 a.m. kickoffs in LA. So I was up at 4:05 for this one, and almost every early morning kickoff is something major to some degree happens. Like the first one I remember when I moved out to LA was like I think it was like the 5-0 versus Arsenal in the 21-22 season, like early on. The United loss in the treble run. I think it was the treble run where it was like the Rashford Bruno offsides. That was a 4:30 kickoff. So like there's always something that happens in these, and they always stick out to me. Because of that, I was on alert. But I thought City played very well up until that first goal. I think once that first goal went in, it was a total disaster. It doesn't mean that there was nothing wrong. Spurs were the press that Spurs had was absolutely fantastic, and we can get more into that. But I went away from this nowhere near as, I guess, worried or kind of scared that I feel like I see a lot of the kind of common sentiments being amongst, I would say, a lot of City fans.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that what you said about the press is very, very poignant, very on point with that, because I think with the new players that we're bringing in and a lot of the new profiles that we're bringing in, it just goes to show that a lot of these teams aren't going to take us as the city of old and just give us that type of benefit of the doubt to where they wouldn't even try to press us in the past, or they would really just trust that we would be able to beat them. They're really going to make us show who we are again. We're going to have to prove everything all over again. So I think that that was very evident in the way that Frank decided to set up Spurs.
Yeah, and so I guess to talk about setups, I mean, I texted you when the lineup dropped, but I just on air now. How did you feel about the lineup? I guess when you saw it, and then during the match.
I think that my reaction was very similar to almost everybody else that I saw. It amazing lineup, perfect lineup, exactly what we've been asking for. No Bernardo, you have Turkey, you have Marmoush on the left wing, you have Bob again, you have that same pivot. I mean, could we have asked for anything more? And then you just know. I feel like we just know, and everybody knew at that time. It's like when everybody likes the lineup, we know what's about to happen. It
Yeah.
never ever works out in those moments where
Yeah.
we all like it. But yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a collection of things. Yeah, when the lineup dropped, I was really excited, and to me, I think it was more telling of like, no, this is a real rebuild. This is the second game of the season, playing Tottenham, a Tottenham side also managed by Thomas Frank. So Tottenham, who have now beaten Pep more than any other club in Guardiola's history, which is the stupidest stat I've ever seen. It's like it just speaks to the Pep era so much, and speaks to like just the weirdness of Tottenham in this kind of stretch where they're no longer the team that they kind of were for the 2010s, but they still continue to get these results. And Thomas Frank, who has always found great success with Brentford under Pep, maybe not even from a result standpoint, from a performance standpoint, those were the worst matches like that City would have during this kind of second era of Pep. But the fact that he would actually play majority of the new signings and he was going for it, to me really spoke a ton. And but it did kind of feel like a welcome to the Premier League for Reinders, for Cherky. It was a little spooky at times. And I mean, I think both Bob and Rico as well, being younger, being undersized, it was a lot of kind of smaller players. And that was one of the very few times where I feel like I'm watching a match and I'm like, there is such a clear physical disadvantage. It's felt like some of those Villa performances, I think kind of an Everton performance from last year as well, were just like big physical midfielders. I mean, like Polina and Bentancur and Sarr, I mean, all three of them were just, it just was so staggering, the physical difference in midfield.
Yeah, and I think that bleeds into a lot of the things we're going to talk about with the performances of individual players that people were disappointed in. I mean, you're putting Cherky and Reinders in a midfield battle against those two. Gonzalez, he's built for that type of match, and I think that he actually performed quite well yesterday. I think that
Yeah.
he was a little bit over. I mean, people would kind of look at him as like a player to target if things are going wrong, but I think that he really held his own in the duels and stuff like that. I think Reinders really struggled when he came up against Sarr and Paulinho types in a lot of those duels in the tight spaces where it was really congested. And Cherky, a lot of the same. I mean, they were man marking Cherky every time he dropped deep. They were putting
Yeah.
Sarr on him. They're dropping Paulinho on him, and these aren't really super favorable matchups for him, in my opinion. If they're going to be right on his heels constantly, I think that we probably need to look at tactical solutions to get him away from that type of thing and get him into more space so that he can feel more comfortable doing the things that he was so good at doing. And I mean, he still did some of those things yesterday. He created some good chances, and there were some unfortunate things that just didn't work out for him. I mean, he should have had an assist on that Holland header. That was pretty point blank. And I remember he found Marmoush with a cross field ball. Marmoush miscontrolled it. I think that those
So
are
frustrating.
moments. Yeah, yeah. And I think that those are moments that probably change how we view his performance a little bit in the end. But I still do think that it just reminds me of the one moment where he tracked back to get the ball back and then off of Sarr, but then he tried to juggle Sarr, and it was just like you said, a welcome to the Premier League type of moment to where Sarr is just so physical. He's just on another level athletically to Cherky that I think it's just a coming to terms with the new environment that you're in type of thing. And yeah, I think I think there's some solutions. I don't know if you want me to get into it right now with what we can do
No,
with
I mean,
Cherky.
I guess let's talk about Turkey overall as his debut, which I thought, or I guess his first start, not his debut, but overall, I thought for his first start that it was pretty solid. There were a few balls that were either like slightly overcooked, like there was the pass to Marmoush, not the one that Marmoush mishandled,
Hmm.
but there was the other one where it was like maybe a yard or two kind of ahead. Yeah, there was the pass over the top where he kind of dropped deep and Marmoush just couldn't put a touch to it, and you could tell how frustrated he was. There was the ball over the top to Holland. There was right before he came off, he played the ball in behind to Rico Lewis, and Rico cut it over to Ake. There were plenty of times where you could see like really good signs. Yes, there were times where he's pushed off the ball. There was the time that clip is making the rounds on Twitter of where he like pops it over Sarr and then gets pushed off over the ball. And what's not talked about is that ball is flung at him at like almost chest height, and he just takes it down like it is nothing, and then just super calmly plops it over Sarr at first. It wasn't maybe the best decision to do that in your own third. It was a little terrifying in the moment, but overall, I walked away with a lot of positives. And yes, I do think it is a little bit of he's going to have to figure out what it's like to play in a new league. But I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I think obviously it's nothing to do with Cherky's talent. I came on here a few weeks ago and said that he's one of the most talented players I've ever seen. I have no doubts about that. I still very much believe that. I just think that his weaknesses that he does have in terms of, I would say, raw athleticism, it's not like a massive weakness to where it's going to hinder his game, but it's certainly not a strength, I would say. And he's going to struggle if he's put into constant duels with guys who are physical monsters in that regard. I think that honestly, the solution that I've been looking at even since the offseason, I caught a lot of heat for this because obviously I'm the Phil Foden guy, and a lot of people think that anytime you have an opinion on that, you're angling forward to get Foden in the lineup. But I think that Turkey at Lyon played a lot on the right wing. And, we've talked about this previously. He has the tendency to even drift over there when he's playing centrally, pretty
Yeah.
much exclusively drifting to the right instead of the left. And then I just look at how easy it was for us to find Oscar Bob yesterday in possession versus finding him in possession. And I just think if we were to put him on the right wing and allow him the same freedom he would have in the center to drift, to go wherever you want, don't even worry about that. But out of possession, to be in more space, to be able to receive the ball in more space, to be able to find runners off the ball when he receives it, instead of having to immediately go into a duel. Things like that. I just think that that would be a much healthier situation for him to be in terms of expressing who he really is as a player and stuff like that. So we'll have to see on that one.
Yeah, I do wonder if he maybe starts to move when like Phil if when Phil comes back and is fully fit, if Phil kind of play more centrally and he'll be out wide right, which is pretty much like how the setup I felt was against, was it Al Hilal, whoever, whatever the Saudi team was they played in the Club World Cup, where it kind of felt Phil is a little bit more ready for a central thing. I think over time Turkey will. It's just going to be a, well, you first come in. Same thing with Bernardo in 17-18. Bernardo basically exclusively played
And
wide
even
right
and
in the
even
midfield.
Phil came in the
Yeah,
same way,
yeah,
and
yeah. Of
Oscar
course.
Bob is getting brought in the same way. I just think that this is the way to get into the city side and really understand how to play with it. And it's not even an on exclusively on the ball thing. Off the ball, I think we saw a lot of issues with Turkey's pressing yesterday. Holland front two was pretty.
Brutal.
It was rough. Honestly, some of the pressing angles, they got played around really easy in that front
Yeah.
two. I think that both of their stamina in terms of recovering when they get passed by with the ball is leaves something to be desired in that regard. And I just think we're putting a lot of unnecessary pressure on Turkey to come into this side and to be this all encompassing figure right off the jump. I mean, this is his second real game, I would say, at City, and
Yeah.
we're already entrusting him to basically run the show. I think that that's really tough and that's really high expectations. I think that maybe we should simplify it and say, here, press wide, be in more space, play more to your strengths. Don't try to adapt while adapting to a new league and adapting your style. It's like a lot to put on him, I think, but you know,
It is a lot to put on him, but I also think it's super telling that for Pep to play both of these, midfielders and Reinders and Cherky back to back games to start the season, I think it's very telling that this is a rebuild. And I don't think it's going. Look, City may not win a trophy this year. I think I'd be really surprised if they do not compete for any one of the three major ones. I really don't think they're going to win the Champions League. Personally, you never know.
mm-hmm.
But this is a commitment to, this is a new era. These are my new guys. And I think that is something that honestly for me, I'm a little bit kind of happy with, or at least I can see a lot of optimism from, because yeah, Turkey and Reinders looked a little lost at times. They're going to look lost. This is the second time that they've played a Premier League match. Like, I think it's pretty natural, and to do so against this kind of midfield managed by Thomas Frank, like, it's going to happen. And so, look, if I'm sitting here in December and nothing's changed, yeah, I'm going to start to have a little problems. I'm going to be worried, but it's a thing for me where I'm honestly pretty happy overall. And I think the best way that I can think about this match overall is it felt a lot like 16-17 at times, where just like things weren't quite so fluid. The amount of times where Turkey plays a pass and it's like the player hadn't started running yet, or I think of like the Holland chance, we'll probably get into more, where Holland passes it to Turkey. Turkey stopped running. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't expecting the ball. And so Holland's playing it, expecting him to keep going. And it's like all these little just like kind of stop start. The team doesn't fully know how to play with each other yet, which makes sense. There was little to no preseason other than a Serie B side. And, okay, great. 8 weeks ago, they played like a summer tournament. So there wasn't really a lot of gelling in that process. And so for me, I'm actually, I'm pretty excited for what this team can become.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, in December, I think this will be a very different scenario. I think that we're coming into a period where we're going to start to have different solutions for a match like this as well. I was thinking yesterday, I was like, well, how do we as City combat these more physical midfields as you were speaking about? I think that this is a problem that we're going to run up against. It's obviously the blueprint to beat us at the moment. We've seen it last year a ton. I mean, I just think of the Brighton matches last year to where we just, we face these physical midfields and we just get dominated in that regard. Rodri is going to be back, and then we're going to have Nico Gonzalez. There's been a lot of speculation that Reinders is going to end up playing the 10 in these big matches, and I really think that that's probably a solution that we're going to see Pep lean on going forward is a Reinders, Rodri, Nico midfield,
Yeah,
because that's the type of thing that can hold up against what we saw yesterday. That's real physicality. That's real pace and power. So, and then we have the forward players that you can fill in around that in those matches. But I don't think it's panic stations. Like you said, it's definitely a
yeah,
rebuild. That lineup was unrecognizable yesterday compared to if you were to told me like a year ago that that's what
yeah.
we were going to be playing. You have Marmouche, Bob, Cherky, Nico, like Reinders, like Ryan
Nate
Eight
Nuri.
Nari. Yeah,
Yeah,
like you're seeing so Trafford, like it's a complete new team. We need to calm down a little bit on it, I think.
and I guess, do you want to just talk about where you think it went wrong? Where do you think it went from new lineup, I'm excited, look at how they're playing, to oh shit?
Yeah, I think a big thing that changed for me was the Ryan Eight Nari injury. I think that
Yeah,
completely changed the way that the left side was working. Obviously, we spoke about the left side last week. It had issues with Doku and Ryan Eight Nari, and that was more tactical. But I guess you could say it's tactical this week, but it was the injury that changed everything. Marmouche was incredibly involved until the
yeah,
Ryan Nari injury. He was everywhere. And I understand that there's a lot of criticism regarding him and his first touch and maybe some of the dribbling and stuff like that, but he was getting shots off and he was getting into positions to get shots off frequently and good shots. I would say with obviously he had the 1v1 chance that he missed, but I'm thinking about the chance on the edge of the box where he drifts
yeah,
inside and gets off a really good shot at the keeper. I think if Ryan Nuri stays on the pitch for the entire match, I would bank on Marmouche probably scoring a goal in that situation. He was getting a chance at about every 10 minutes, I would say, in the early parts of the game and stuff like that. So when he went off, I think the left side completely collapsed pretty much. Marmouche became relatively irrelevant because he had to play super wide because Ake isn't really an overlapping or an inverting type of player. He could do some of these things, and obviously he had a cross and he had that shot that was blocked, but he's not Ryan and Nari in those positions.
yeah.
He's not pushing Marmouche in
Or
next to
Gvardiol.
Holland. Yeah, or even Gvardiol. Yeah, that's the big issue. I was a
Yeah,
bit surprised not to see Nico O'Reilly come on at the left back position, but it really feels like he's being more so pushed towards being a midfield player as we've only really seen him in midfield this season. And like towards the end of last season, I feel like he was, or in the Club World Cup, he was playing more in midfield and stuff like
yeah,
that. So yeah, and then obviously when the goal went in, I feel like everybody kind of panicked. It's like, oh, here we go again. It's Spurs. This is our bogey team, bogey manager, like you said, with Thomas Frank struggling there. It's like I feel like that stuff really does matter. I feel like that stuff really is in the players' heads when they're thinking in those moments and stuff like
absolutely,
that. So yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I also think putting Nico in that's a lot of young kids. Like if you were to put Nico on as well, that is a whole lot of young, inexperienced players against a like big six side. And so I get Pep with maybe being a little bit more conservative because I think as Pep's gotten older, he has gotten more conservative and going with one of his guys that he trusts with a team of honestly mostly relatively new players.
do you, do you think it was
Oh,
Kudus as well? I think it was Kudus on that side as
totally.
well. That
Yeah,
that probably impacts that
absolutely.
decision. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that would have been rude to Nico. It's like, hey,
Hmm.
this guy's one of the most talented wingers in world football. You don't even you're not actually even a left back. Like, go ahead and do it. Which is, I mean, which I get, and I think I understand the decision making, and it didn't work. And we can probably talk about some other substitutions that maybe didn't work in a bit. But yeah, in that first half, yeah, there's that Marmouche. I don't even want to say miss. There's the chance where he gets on that header, as the poor header back from I think it was from Poro, and if he makes that, it's insane. The miss later, which I think was in like the 27th minute, when it's just point blank Holland dribbling between players and plays a ball in behind.
Messi.
Yeah, Well, what it was weirdly, Holland does have, because you saw this. I felt this. You saw it a lot with like the United match with like him and Foden kind of have good chemistry. He can play a good final ball, which is like not really what you would expect. But obviously, plays Marmoush behind. Marmoush should finish that. That's a chance that he should finish. It's why he was bought, to bury stuff like that, and it's pretty frustrating that at that kind of point blank, either he can't finish or try to dribble around the keeper and finish it that way as well. Those were two big moments. And then I think the biggest thing is when Holland and Bob win the ball back. I have like the times written down. It's at 33:59. Holland and Bob are pressing. They win the ball back. Holland plays the ball to Reinders. No one is within 5 yards of Reinders. And if you look at there's a wide angle later. If anyone goes and rewatches it, if you wait for the wide angle, there's one player that Reinders can see that's like probably within like 5-ish yards, and there is no one within 15 yards behind him. And he just takes it first time, overcooks the pass, and it goes out of bounds, which I think wholeheartedly is just because of the aggressive press that Tottenham had for 30 minutes, that he's like, this is a different league. I need to move so much faster. And he wasn't ready, didn't scan anywhere, and just plays it. That goes out of bounds at like 33:05. And then literally straight from there, that's the goal kick. Diaz loses the header. He's not even close. I can't even believe he jumps for that thing. He's not even close to winning that header. Stone slips, and they score a goal within 30 seconds. I mean, it is just like, in a nutshell, I couldn't believe it in the moment of just like what I had just seen. I had written it down, on my phone. I was like kind of just taking notes down and put little timestamps just in case I wanted to go back and like rewatch certain clips. And when the fact the goal itself actually went in, it was one of the most preventable things I'd ever seen. And and I'm an optimist, but I took it as like, hey, look, this is something that they're easily going to be able to look at as like, look how much things can change. This is why you need to be controlled. This is why you need to be ready, because that was the match. Basically, in a nutshell, the Marmoush miss and then that Reinders, overcooking pass set the entire rest of the first half in motion.
Yeah, I think that we spoke about Frank's tactics earlier being super effective. I think that one of the things that they were most effective at was inducing this anxiety in our players. Like you saw with Reinders, he felt Paulinho's breath on the back of his
Yeah.
neck when in those moments, even though he wasn't there, just because he was following him around all match. Like you said, that was an extremely frustrating moment because he could have gotten any shot off that he wanted in that moment. But yeah, like you said, going into that goal versus with Diaz, I mean, he's he's got to be better in the air than he has been. I'm one of his biggest defenders. I feel like on the internet in terms of these moments and stuff like this. But these do matter. These are situations that we are going to face in big matches. You can't lose a header to Kudus. Like that's just brutal in that moment. And then obviously the stone slip and stuff like that. But yeah, like you said, it's just emblematic. It was really effective. It was really effective in terms of setting up to target our weaknesses at maximum capacity at every moment. I think that once they really got comfortable in the match, I don't feel like we ever were able to make them uncomfortable again after that point, really.
Yeah. I mean, it was all three. It was Diaz losing the header. It was Stone slipping. And Rico had honestly a solid 10 to 15 yards on Brendan Johnson. It was
He should have
the,
cleared it too. He should have
yeah,
cleared it. His leg was right there. I don't know.
yeah. It was, all of it was really frustrating. That's the part that kind of scares me more, is like, oh, it wasn't one mistake. It wasn't just the slip. It was the header, the slip. And look, Rico's never going to be a great defender. He's not a right back to be a defender. He's a right back to recycle possession. And I mean, Pep said it. Pep said that when we're good, he's good. And when we're bad, he's bad. Like, that is just kind of how he is as a player. And he's been catching a ton of hate. It's not a great look. And as someone that's a huge Rico fan, but someone that is a huge Rico fan, it upsets me. But the fact that all three of them had major issues is a little bit of a cause for concern, but all three also felt preventable. So, because it's the second game of the season, I'm going to be okay. And like I said before, if it's December, I'm going to have problems.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the first goal. The second goal, Trafford gets the ball off a goal kick, looks around, decides that playing the ball to a heavily covered player is going to be the best decision, and Pauline is able to score off of the
I hope you
rebound. Yeah, go for it.
I hope you overlay the picture because I have the
Yeah,
picture on my phone of what Trafford was seeing at the moment when he decided to make that pass, and it is preposterous. There's like at least three other options blatantly visible that he should
yeah,
probably take in that moment, and he chooses the worst one. Even Nico, I'm pretty sure, is pointing away from himself, like, don't pass
yes.
me the ball. I don't want it right now. And it's like,
Stones is wide open. There's like he could
and there's
play
a
it centrally if
midfielder
he
right
wanted
behind.
to. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
He could play it there if he wanted to, or just Stones. And another angle that they show where and it's just because everyone's focusing on like the behind angle, which makes sense. But the wide angle too is just you see Stones to his right, and there's nobody near him, and that was so much more frustrating. Obviously, just from like the error alone, but the time that it happened at, like it was so clearly after the first goal went in that just the team was falling apart, and to go into halftime down 2-0 made it insurmountable.
It completely changed the match. Exactly. Like you said, against the Thomas Frank team, you're like going 2-0 down, especially against a team that is able to put out a midfield like that. They're just going to stop everything you try to build in the middle of the pitch
Yeah,
after that. But like the Trafford thing is supremely unfortunate for his career, I would say. That is
yeah,
probably the worst time that he could have had a game like that. Just have this game a week later, if for your
yeah,
career's sake,
yeah,
because I know what's going on behind the scenes right now. Those
yeah. If this
negotiations
happens
for
in the Brighton
Donnarumma,
match, if this
he's
happens in the
fine.
Brighton match, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but Donnarumma's going to be here by the end of the week. I'm so sure of it. After that,
And look, I think you're right. There's a really good chance it happens, and I think there were so many City fans that are calling for Donnarumma now. If you think that was a problem from Trafford, get ready,
yeah, it's
get
funny.
ready.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's like I just feel like I don't know. Donnarumma has his issues, but I feel like after what he did in the Champions League last year, that they're just going to be way more confident in him in a big match like that. I really
Totally.
worry. I really, really worry about Trafford getting a little too cute like he did yesterday if we're at like the Bernabeu or at Anfield in moments like that to where the crowd is bearing down on you. We just conceded a goal. We're under massive amounts of pressure. Is he ready for this moment coming straight from Burnley? I don't want to say that he wasn't amazing at Burnley last year. Obviously, he won the championship player of the year and all that at Burnley with 29 clean sheets or whatever it was. It was a very high number like that.
Yeah.
But this is a different
He almost
level.
got JJ Watt out of retirement.
Exactly. I
People
saw
might not
those
like there
tweets.
was that like ongoing bit like that was it was a thing I covered for work where it was like if you don't give up another goal for the rest of the season, and he kept like 10 clean sheets after the fact.
I kept seeing the tweets. They had so many likes, I couldn't miss it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a different level. This is a whole different game. And I think that it's unfortunate, I guess, for him that we're going to sign a keeper that's probably going to be on a 5-year deal on massive wages to go right in front of him. But I don't know if he's ready for the entire expectations of the club to be on his shoulders as our number one.
Yeah, I mean it was a massive wake up call, and between that and then when he ran out
Like 5 times.
and yeah, he kept that
Yeah.
was the thing. It was he there was the time where I don't think it was a red card personally. I think that like if you really slow it down, it looks like he's flying kneeing him in the face, like Kenny Omega AEW style. It's really not. Like I think he honestly barely catches him, but when you slow it down, it looks terrible. I don't think that's a red card. It's at the very least potentially a foul, but keepers get qualified immunity whenever they come out of the box. So it's really got to be like a pretty aggressive foul for anything to get called. But he kept coming out. He kept misplaying things. There was the other time where he overcooked. I didn't write it down, and I haven't gone back and to try to find it. But where he's like he clearly just mistimes it. I really look. It's a rebuild. I think these things might happen. I don't want to say it again, but it's the second game of the season, and I'm okay with it for right now.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I would be if we went into the season with Trafford as our keeper. I'm not going to say that it's going to stop us from doing whatever
Yeah,
we're going to do or whatever. I just don't think that the City hierarchy, given how I've seen them operate recently in terms of being more ruthless in this regard and prioritizing, we need success right now. even with some of the moves that they're looking at. I mean, obviously the Savinho thing's still going on in the background with possibly bringing in someone like Rodrigo to replace him. I just really feel like they're looking at absolute top quality at every position. They're not
Yeah.
looking to build into anything. They're looking for something right now. They want to win right now. And that's obviously understandable given the financial outlay that's been put into the project and stuff like that. They don't want to, wait a year for the returns on that. But yeah, we'll
I
see.
do
I think
wonder if it's more of a they buy Donnarumma on the cheap, sign him to and maybe they give him a 5-year deal. I could see they buy him and flip him soon. I
Donnarumma.
really do. Yeah.
Yeah, I almost wonder if that's what they're going to do with Trafford because they have
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
English passport with him. It boosts his value. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to speculate too much on that, but it does seem like if you're bringing both of them in, that one will be walking back out the door very quickly
Yeah.
thereafter. I think that that's a very good thought that you just brought up.
Um yeah, and then I guess let's just talk about the second half. Um Look, when the second half started, my eyes widened, and then one of my best friends is a Spurs fan. And I texted him, "What is Thomas Frank doing?" Because when they opened up the second half, just inviting pressure, I could not believe what I was seeing. And I mean, within the opening, I would say like 8 minutes, there was a couple chances. There was Turkey played the ball into Rico behind, which we had talked about. He passes to Ake. Ake had time, doesn't have the best touch. I think he potentially could have played the ball to Reinders. I think it was like the pressing thing as well, where they were just moving so fast. He doesn't play to Reinders. He takes a shot. It's blocked. And then there's the chance a few minutes later, Bob and Holland once again win the ball back. Bob is stepped on. Just the most blatant penalty, not called. And then goes to play the Holland goes to play the ball to Turkey. Turkey stops running, and the ball gets overcooked. I mean, it was after that though. I think I understood bringing Bernardo and Doku on. If I see what I just saw, not maybe from a Turkey standpoint, I think, but from they're playing super deep now. I need to bring Doku on. That made sense. I just don't think it worked. I was actually shocked at how poor City were for like the 10 minutes after once Bernardo and Doku were brought on.
Yeah, I think Doku. I'm always shocked to see, or at least I was yesterday, to see the difference in some people's opinions on what Marmoush provided versus what Doku provided. I thought it was once Ryan Nate went off, the performance that Marmoush gave from that point after and what
Totally.
Doku provided when he came on,
Totally.
very similar. I think that is a very similar thing of zero support, getting doubled up on often, not really being able to do very much, things like that. The Bernardo thing with Turkey is I'm almost certain that Bernardo was brought on for off-ball purposes because,
Yeah.
like we were talking about with Turkey and Holland, the pressing was a little bit of a struggle and things like that. And I think that Pep knows what he's going to get out of Bernardo in those moments. The problem was that it just didn't work, and Bernardo played
Yeah.
horrible. He lost all of his duels. He was in 5 duels. He lost every single one of them, and it was evident on the pitch that he was just a little off it yesterday. So yeah, I would have liked to see that be Foden, and I think that the impact that Foden gave when he came on the pitch
Yeah.
was evidence that it probably should have been Foden in that moment. He did all the things that you would want Bernardo to do. And I have to give Pep credit. When Foden came on the pitch, Bernardo went out to right wing. It wasn't Foden
Yeah.
on the right wing. He knew
Yeah.
what the assignment was with that, and that is very good to see because it has not always been that way, and it may not always be that way. But yesterday, it was good to see that he was brought on in the middle, and I think Foden. I don't know. He looked really sharp. I think
No,
him.
absolutely. Foden came on in the 75th. The first thing he does is he turns and skins Poro and draws the foul. He then has the corner, like later on, has the corner directly to Rodri. Rodri just heads it immediately at Vicario, like just immediately at Vicario. And then 3 minutes later, him and Doku link up. Doku also skins Poro, plays it off to Foden. And it's like, it reminded me so much of the Champions League final attempt from 2021 against Chelsea, where Rudiger makes the crazy tackle to like stop Foden's chance. Van de Ven makes a fantastic play and, gets a tackle in and basically blocks the cross before it can actually become a real chance. And in the span of like 3 or 4 minutes, I could not believe actually how like great of a start it was for Foden and Rodri. I thought both of them looked fantastic. Rodri just super calmly getting the ball, shuffling it around. It felt like a different team. It was so unbelievable just to see him back, like in a city side in the Premier League.
Yeah, you just gave me war flashbacks. I got to recover real quick from that Rudiger challenge. That's one of the worst moments of my life. So hold on, let me take a moment to regain my composure. Oh my God, I totally, when you put up the walls in your mind to forget about
Yeah,
something, that and the
yeah,
Mahrez chance at the end of that game, I just washed
yeah,
all over me right now.
yeah,
But yeah, I think that Foden was obviously great, and it's just the way he is moving. He moved a lot better than he was moving last season. I think that when we watched Foden a lot last season, he seemed really lethargic, especially towards the end of the season. He wasn't really
yeah,
moving with the type of energy, type of pace, type of verve that he has now and stuff like that. So, like you said, Rodri. The more I think about Rodri, the more I can't believe we didn't see him as a Ballon d'Or level player before he actually won it, because this guy is 6'4" or whatever. He's just a massive human being with maxed out stats in every regard on the pitch. There is nothing that he can't do. I mean, he was winning duels all over the place. He made me so nervous with that one stretching duel he won
yeah.
to set us up
Yes.
in transition where he throws his knee into it. I'm like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. He's too important or whatever. But yeah, I think that he was fantastic. I really like seeing Rodri back in this side. I think that that's the difference. That is for lack of a better word, the pivot that this season is
Yeah.
gonna hinge on. If he gets back to his level, I think that we're going to be a completely different team than we've seen for the last 12 months now. So
Yeah, and I think that's the part that is, I guess, I mean, for like the scariest is how long is it going to take him to get back to like full fitness, and then how many games is he going to be able to play in a row? Because I definitely don't think it's going to be coming back immediately to 3 games in a week. I think that Nico Gonzalez has shown enough to where when there's lesser opposition, when there's cup games, smaller Champions League teams, like during the league phase, obviously we don't know what that schedule is going to look like just yet, but Nico has shown that he can kind of come in and step in and play, especially during like the spring and fall, or sorry, especially during the fall and winter, where the games inherently aren't necessarily as important. But when it starts to get into the spring and it's Champions League quarterfinals, Champions League semifinals, and then also at the weekend there's going to be games against top sides. That's where I think it gets a little bit scarier. But fortunately, at that point, we're looking like 18 months out from the injury. And that's where I hope at that point Roger can be as close to full fitness. But if he's picking up like hamstring injuries or quad injuries or any of the other kind of like muscle tears because he hasn't played, you know, professional football in a year, that's where it can start to get really spooky.
yeah, not only will it be 18 months out from his injury at that point, it will be what, 18 months into Nico Gonzalez being
Yeah.
here as a player, and maybe he's a completely different player. I know that that's around the time that Rodri took his jump as a player into being a different type of defensive midfielder for Pep. So yeah, I think that there's solutions. He obviously needs to be treated with kid gloves, going up all the way up until the end of the season. Like we really need to manage his minutes, even the type of tactical setups we're in. He really needs to have support. I really don't think that we should be leaving him isolated and constantly exposed to these duels where he's running and challenging at full speed. I mean, just really need to be careful, because I think it's more important that he has a good end of the season and is healthy and is back full firing at full capacity, hopefully coming off a contract extension that comes at some point in the season, going into next season. I mean, obviously this season is really important and we're in the moment right now, so it's everything to us, but we really need to remember that Rodri's a player that we wanted to be here for five more years, probably at the minimum, and
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah, we need to be really careful with him, obviously, especially seeing now what these injuries, they compound. We saw with Kevin De Bruyne over these years, these injuries stack up, especially once you start having more serious ones, then the littler ones become more frequent. I mean, even if you're going to look at a different team, look at Saka just at the weekend, getting injured
Yeah.
again, coming off his injury, re-injuring the hamstring. You just really don't want to be in a situation like that with your most important players.
Yeah. Fortunately, with it being an ACL, I feel like it's a little different, but it presents its own problems of any time you come back from a major injury like that. It's all the other muscles that have been basically like working overtime while that thing's getting fully back to 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's everything on the Spurs match. I mean, just the kind of stats to read them off. It's same amount of shots on target there was against Wolves, um, except the two big chances City missed versus, although they did have two big chances missed against Wolves, they also converted the 4 shots on target. So I think that was kind of the major difference. And with FotMob had the XG higher. FotMob had City had a higher XG than Spurs, and honestly, Spurs had 2 shots on goal in the last minute of stoppage time, which I really think like bumped up those XG numbers. I saw the XG philosophy had Spurs at a higher XG. I don't know where that number is coming from, and I don't understand how those numbers don't add up. But the duels being at 50%, that makes no sense to me. I checked like 3 different sites to see if City and Spurs were actually equal on duels, and allegedly it was. I'm just going to take that, I guess, in the second half. City won a lot more because
Meaningless
from minute,
duels. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, because we got rocked, dude. Every time I saw us in midfield, we could not compete. It was bad.
um, yeah, and it was a really. All I will say is, if anyone has the ability to rewatch the match, if you either like pay for City Plus or Peacock or whatever if there's a streaming service in the UK other than City Plus that allows you to rewatch the matches, I really encourage you to rewatch it. It is not as bad as you would expect. It really was not. And there are so many little moments that really could have, I think, turned the game around. And it makes me hopeful. That's why I have such like an optimistic outlook on this. And I don't know, it might be also a thing of like match going fans versus non-match going fans. A lot of people on my timeline were fans that were in stadium, and they were the ones that I think were a little bit more doom and gloom on it versus I think people that watched at home. And I don't know if that's always the case. I feel like a lot of times it's sometimes in stadium almost has like a little bit better perspective with certain things, but this was one of those times where it felt like the opposite.
Yeah, I think that's just a cause of like when you're losing all these duels right in front of you, and then you're in the match and you
Yeah.
have no commentary for context, no replay for to really see things over and over again and really analyze it. I think that you really feel like, oh man, we're in trouble here. Like like we can't
Yeah.
really compete. I think that that's a uniquely helpless feeling when you don't have the luxuries of replays and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I think the only other thing to mention with the match, and this is kind of historically overall, I have pulled up every City title win under Pep just to kind of make people feel a little bit better. So in 17-18, there's starting off the win against Brighton, there was the draw to Everton, and then the 2-1 win over Bournemouth. I think that's when Sterling like just like skims that shot that like somehow goes in. So dropped points in the first 3 matches. 18-19, there's the win versus Arsenal. We beat Huddersfield 6-1, and then there's the draw to Wolves, 1-1. 2021, there's the 5-2 loss to Leicester in the 3rd match of the season. Ruben Diaz gets signed, who's public enemy number 1 right now, but has completely changed City, and City win 4 titles in his first 5 years. In 21-22, lost the first game of the season to Tottenham in a disaster game after the Euros. That is when, I forget his name, but that Tottenham fullback, I feel like, fouled Jack Grealish for a full 90 minutes. It didn't get called for 1 foul. I
The
have like
Tanganga.
vivid memories. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Kicking him up and down the
Hmm.
pitch. I have like vivid memories of that. Treble winning season. That's Holland's first year. That was when it was the Holland show at first, but there's that 3-3 draw to Newcastle where we first started to see the cracks in Kyle Walker's armor. And then last season, they actually they won the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matches of the season. So other than last season, City have dropped points in the first 3 matches and have gone on to win a title. So that is all I'm going to say. That's my copium. That is my how I'm spinning this, and just want everyone to know that it might be okay.
Yes, it'll very much be okay. Pep likes to try things early in the season. If this was late in the season, I promise you this is a very much more pragmatic setup yesterday, and we don't lose 2-0. We maybe skim a draw out of it. That's the difference between Pep in the beginning of the season and Pep in the run in to where we never actually don't achieve our goals. It seems like we never fail in a run in is because he figures it out. And I
Yeah.
have faith. You just gotta trust the manager.
Trust the greatest manager of all time.
Yeah. Easy to do, in my opinion.
Yeah. So look ahead to Brighton. Just lost 2-0 to Everton. Jack Grealish just got 2 assists,
Of course.
which is fantastic. We were recording this as that match is going on. Look, this is a team that I think normally Pep has a lot of great success on. They haven't looked that great this season. I think the first match against Fulham, they weren't that great. Just lost 2-0 to Everton. Everton lost a little bit different. It's the first game of the new season. You're going to have tens of thousands of fans really up for it in this new stadium. I think that is a little bit of a different cause, but I do expect City to really perform against this team that they have historically. They lost last year, and the only other time they've lost to Brighton was in the after the season was already over, and that like bizarro game with like that was back when like Ferran Torres was still in the squad. So normally this is not even really a contest. So I'm expecting City to win comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, historically, it says that. The tactical matchup says that to me. The only thing that I would really question in that regard is when I was looking at Brighton's lineup today, the amount of talent that they really have, like
Yeah,
that they've been able to accrue over time is really substantial. Like this is a team that wouldn't even consider relegation battles anymore
yeah,
with the talent they have. I mean, their back line, absurdly talented. I think Lewis Dunk, that's an English international now. Van Hecke, very quality player. Wiefer, I mean, he struggled today against Grealish from what I've seen, but he's a quality midfielder. Matoma, Minta, even Danny Welbeck. I mean, these are players that can hurt teams. It just never seems that they actually do it against City, and maybe it's due to the way that the Brighton hierarchy demands their team plays, more man to man, more aggressive style and stuff like that. But it would never surprise me if they jumped up and were able to give us some issues just due to the talent like that. But as you've said, historically and everything that we've seen so far with this season, with them struggling to begin it, would indicate that it should be an easier match.
more so as a Jack Grealish defender. I just need to know your thoughts on Jack Grealish getting 2 assists in his first start for Everton.
Well, I would just say I told you so. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. it's uh it's good. It's just emblematic of the type of player Jack Grealish really is. I mean, I feel like I loved him and I loved what he gave us in the treble season, especially. But this is a mid-table demon type of player that with space thrives and is a creative problem for the opposition whenever he has space and stuff like that. I just think it's really almost ironic in a way that we complained, or a lot of people complained about Jack Grealish for like 2 years or even during the treble season, and then now we can't figure out our left side, and he goes on loan to Everton and has 2 assists right away.
Yeah.
It's like it's just it's just funny how things go. It's a bit of a be careful what you wish for, you might just get it type of situation in that moment. But yeah, I'm happy for him. Obviously, he's never coming back here. Turkey snatched his number. I have no doubts that his time at City
Yeah.
is over, but it would be nice to get a good fee for him. So hopefully he continues to perform in the way that he's
Yeah,
been.
that $50 million buy option might get taken. That might just be, they were going to recover half the fee for him. I mean, the first assist is fantastic. Second assist, that's a Paul Pogba assist.
Yeah.
That's not real. But the first one, hey, had acres of space and
What a
followed through.
cross.
So happy for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I mean, look, that's it. As always, thank you to Freddie. Thank you to Jordan for allowing me to put this show on the City Extra YouTube channel. Thank you to Phil Casso, the wonderful Phil Casso, for coming on.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, that's the show. Good luck, everyone.